grab it there, leave it there, David. Thank you. What are you choosing for us today?
I've grabbed a rum today from Venezuela. Diplomatico is excellent for sipping or grating cocktails. So whatever you fancy. Perfect for your Monday evening.
Thank you very much indeed. There's a top tip from Suze. Always drink responsibly. Just like they're doing confessions. I don't think so. Anyway, Knuckles sends in today's confession. Thanks, Knuckles. Father Simon, Brother Matt, Sister Susie. Today I seek forgiveness for an unfortunate situation that occurred not on these shores and very far from home. It was the noughties, and until a few months before the incident in question, I'd been living a successful, if rather bland, life. I had the job, I had the house, I had the car, but I was questioning my life choices and whether all this materialism with its overrated central heating, hot showers and wardrobes full of plentiful clothes was really for me. So I did what all sensible people should do, and I quit my job, sold my car, rented my house and bought a round-the-world ticket and a backpack. Time to grow my hair, put on a pair of fisherman pants and tie a smelly piece of string around my wrist. I am going travelling. I wasn't like your average gap year student, says Knuckles. I was older than many of my fellow travellers and, blessed with the proceeds from the sale of my car, was able to enjoy the full benefits world travel can offer. I did a road trip across the US, I abseiled through waterfalls in Costa Rica, I hiked to Machu Picchu in Peru, I sambaed in Brazil, and I skydived in New Zealand. I eventually arrived in Southeast Asia, which is where my confession takes place. I was determined to seek a path less travelled, and this is how I ended up in a town in the north of Laos. I boarded a bus to take me on the journey. My seat was a sack of potatoes, despite generating a considerable dust plume as it bounced along a red earth dirt road. The bus company clearly didn't think that oiling the windows to allow them to close was a worthy endeavour. The bus was mainly full of local people, but there was a handful of intrepid fellow travellers, and to my surprise, at first glance at least, some of us seemed to have something in common. Lone male travellers in their 30s. I had found my tribe. We arrived in the town and bonded over a beer or three and stories of diarrhoea, standard travel affair, as you understand. And then, softened by the effects of maybe my third bottle of cold beer, two of the more adventurous of my tribe, let's call them Bear and Jock, convinced me to go on a mountain bike ride the next day. Jock was sporty, the kind of person that ran half marathons for fun. He knew where to find an entrepreneurial local man who would rent us our bikes. Bear was a chisel-jawed Californian who thrived on survival pursuits. He had an endless supply of positivity and hyperbole. Awesome. I was unfit and on the grumpier side of life, especially if deprived of food. The next day, I reluctantly joined Jock and Bear as we set off on our bicycle adventure. If the previous day's bus journey had been uncomfortable, it was nothing compared to how my trouser area felt after 2 hours of gusset rubbing. Jock and Bear were well ahead of me when eventually we arrived in what felt like an oasis in the rising heat of the day, a small town. The grimace that was now etched on my face must have painted 1,000 words, none of them pleasant, because both Jock and Bear were quick to accept my plea to refuel on food and water. As we cycled further into the town, I finally spotted my Nirvana. Like the rest of the houses in town, it was a humble wooden structure, but inside it was full of people sitting down and tucking into bowls of rice and fish stew. This is the place for us. We walked in. This wasn't the place for us. It was as though the piano player had stopped and every face turned to look at us with sombre disdain. There was a counter where the food was being served by the only friendly-looking face in the room, a slender lad in his 20s. I walked over to him and frantically pointed at a bowl, some rice, then the fish stew, and finally my mouth. I rounded off my mind with a big smile and an enthusiastic rub of my belly. Boom! The message landed and the three of us ignored the room full of eyes firmly fixed on us to perch at the only empty table where I promptly wolfed down the meal. There is nothing like exercise to fuel a healthy appetite, so I returned to the counter to get a refill. Delicious. Jock eventually turned to me and said, "We should pay." Having connected with the lad at the counter, I returned to settle our tab. Once again, I pointed enthusiastically at the food, pointed at my mouth, but he looked confused. I tried again, but this time with more exaggerated actions. He looked more perplexed and then signaled to a girl in the room in her late teens. She walked over and he muttered something to her. I started my game of charades once again, but she quickly tapped my arm and interrupted. "You speak English?" she said. Hallelujah, I thought. Yes. I said, smiling like the Cheshire Cat. We love your restaurant and your food. We had 4 bowls of fish stew, and now we'd like to pay. The girl looked confused. Must be my accent. Easily solved. Every Brit abroad knows if you're not understood the first time, what you need to do is to speak loudly and slowly.
Of course.
We had 4 bowls of fish stew, and now we want to pay. I reached for my wallet. She quickly raised her hand to stop me, and then the words that have haunted me until this day. You no pay, it's my uncle's funeral. Father Simon, Brother Matt, Sister Susie, I seek forgiveness not from the people whose funeral wake we'd interrupted with shared fish stew. Despite our language barrier, the joke was on us. After the meal, we were welcome to stay. We became minor celebrities.
Wow.
Now I seek forgiveness from the local entrepreneur who rented us the bicycles that were eventually returned a day late. He had clearly invested a large sum of his savings in the business, not to have the worry that some reckless foreigners had done a runner with the bikes and his next customers would be left without wheels. Father Simon, Brother Matt, Sister Susie, please exercise your compassion and remove the burden of guilt that has plagued me for all these years. Well, it's a fine tale, and our first, I believe, from Laos.
Yeah.
They were very excited. However, it didn't go quite the way they expected, but it seems as though it turned out in the end. Sister Susie, the voice of responsibility.
Well, Knuckles, I don't know what to say. You should have known when you walked in the piano shop. Surely, you must have been able. There must have been some clues that it was a funeral. There must have been. And yeah, wow. You could have just left a donation, maybe, but I just don't think I can forgive you because that is shocking. Absolutely shocking. I can't.
Brother from another.
Was there any? What kind of clue? Unless there's a coffin literally in the room.
Formal dress,
would you know?
black tie. Maybe not in Laos.
In a formal dress.
Oh, it's hilarious. I love that. It's super. What a payoff. You don't pay. It's my uncle's funeral. Oh, superb.
And then they stayed and have a few more beers afterwards.
I love that. What a tale. Brilliant. Well done.
Okay, so the question is, do you forgive Knuckles